The Chernobyl disaster was a catastrophic nuclear accident that occurred on April 26, 1986, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Pripyat, Ukraine, which was then part of the Soviet Union. It is considered one of the most severe nuclear accidents in history. Here's a brief overview of the events surrounding the Chernobyl disaster. Background: the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, located about 14.5 kilometers north of the city of Chernobyl and near the border with Belarus, consisted of 4 RBMK-1000 reactors. At the time of the accident, it was one of the largest and oldest nuclear power plants in the Soviet Union. The accident, in the early hours of April 26, 1986, during a late-night safety test, a combination of human errors and reactor design flaws led to a sudden power surge in reactor number 4. This caused a significant increase in reactor output, and the reactor core quickly overheated. Explosion and release of radioactive material. The overheating of the reactor fuel resulted in a steam explosion that blew the reactor's 1,000-ton cover off. A subsequent graphite fire broke out, releasing large amounts of radioactive materials, including iodine-131, cesium-137, and other isotopes, into the atmosphere. Immediate response. Initially, the plant personnel on site were not aware of the full extent of the disaster. It took several hours for the Soviet authorities to comprehend the magnitude of the accident and the potential threat it posed. Nearby firefighters and plant workers who were not adequately protected were exposed to lethal levels of radiation. Evacuation and containment. In the following days, the Soviet government evacuated residents from nearby towns and cities, including the entire population of Pripyat. Efforts were made to contain the fire and prevent further release of radioactive materials. A sarcophagus was hastily constructed over the destroyed reactor to prevent further radiation leakage. Long-term impact. The Chernobyl disaster had far-reaching consequences, both in terms of immediate human impact and long-term environmental and health effects. The exact number of deaths and illnesses caused by the accident remains a topic of debate, but it's estimated that thousands of people were affected by radiation-related health issues. Exclusion zone. Following the disaster, an exclusion zone was established around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, encompassing an area of approximately 2,600 square kilometers. This zone is largely uninhabited due to the high levels of radiation and remains restricted to this day. The Chernobyl disaster exposed serious flaws in the design and safety culture of the RBMK reactors and prompted significant changes in nuclear safety protocols worldwide. The accident also had a profound impact on public perception of nuclear power and influenced policies regarding nuclear energy and safety standards. In recent years, the Chernobyl exclusion zone has gained attention as a tourist destination, with limited access allowed to certain areas under strict guidance. Efforts to contain the radioactive materials and secure the site continue to this day. Causes of the accident. The Chernobyl disaster was caused by a combination of human errors and inherent design flaws in the RBMK-1000 reactor. During the safety test, the reactor's control rods, which were supposed to slow down the nuclear reaction, were fully retracted from the core. This, coupled with the reactor's positive void coefficient, led to an uncontrolled chain reaction and a sudden surge in power output. Explosion and radioactive release. The power surge caused the reactor core to overheat rapidly, leading to a steam explosion that blew off the reactor's massive concrete lid. The explosion ruptured the reactor, exposing the highly radioactive core to the environment. The fire that followed released radioactive particles into the atmosphere, contaminating the surrounding areas and spreading radiation across Europe. Immediate response and rescue operations. The response to the disaster was initially slow and disorganized, partly due to the secrecy surrounding the Soviet nuclear program. The first responders, including firefighters and plant workers, were unaware of the dangerous levels of radiation they were exposed to. Many of them succumbed to acute radiation sickness shortly after the accident. Evacuation and relocation. The Soviet government eventually ordered the evacuation of nearby towns and cities, including the city of Pripyat, which was home to the plant workers and their families. In total, about 115,000 people were evacuated from the affected areas. These residents were forced to leave their homes and belongings behind, never to return. Containment and cleanup efforts. To limit further radioactive release, the Soviet authorities constructed a temporary containment structure, often referred to as the sarcophagus, over the destroyed reactor. This structure helped contain the radiation for several decades, but over time, it started to deteriorate. In 2016, a new, more secure containment structure called the New Safe Confinement (NSC) was put in place to encase the reactor and prevent further leaks. Long-term health and environmental impact. The Chernobyl disaster had devastating health consequences for those directly exposed to high levels of radiation. Acute radiation sickness caused severe injuries and fatalities in the immediate aftermath. In the years that followed, there was an increase in cancer rates, particularly thyroid cancer, and other health issues related to radiation exposure. The environmental impact was also significant, with large areas becoming uninhabitable for an extended period. Chernobyl exclusion zone. The area surrounding the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was designated as the Chernobyl exclusion zone, a highly contaminated area where human habitation is restricted. The zone is divided into different areas based on radiation levels, with the innermost area known as the zone of alienation. The zone has become an eerie and haunting reminder of the disaster, with abandoned buildings and amusement parks standing as silent witnesses to the tragedy. Legacy and lessons learned. The Chernobyl disaster had a profound impact on the nuclear industry worldwide. It prompted a reassessment of nuclear safety protocols and led to significant changes in reactor design and operational procedures. The disaster also played a role in shaping public perceptions of nuclear power and raised awareness about the importance of transparency, accountability, and safety in the nuclear industry. The Chernobyl disaster remains one of the most poignant examples of the potential dangers of nuclear power and the importance of learning from past mistakes to prevent similar accidents in the future. It serves as a somber reminder of the consequences of inadequate safety measures and the need for a responsible approach to harnessing nuclear energy. The human toll. The immediate human toll of the Chernobyl disaster was devastating. 2 plant workers were killed instantly during the explosion, and 28 firefighters and plant staff died from acute radiation sickness in the following weeks. These were the first casualties of the disaster, but the long-term effects on human health were even more significant. The total number of deaths related to the Chernobyl disaster remains a subject of debate among experts. The World Health Organization, WHO, estimated that the accident could cause up to 4,000 additional cancer deaths among the affected populations. However, some studies suggest that the number of casualties could be much higher, including estimates of tens of thousands of deaths from radiation-induced cancers and other related illnesses over time. The liquidators. After the accident, the Soviet government initiated a massive cleanup operation involving hundreds of thousands of workers known as liquidators. These brave individuals were tasked with containing the radioactive debris, decontaminating affected areas, and building the sarcophagus over the destroyed reactor. Many of these workers received high doses of radiation and faced significant health risks. Their efforts played a crucial role in mitigating further radioactive release. Environmental impact. The Chernobyl disaster had severe and lasting consequences for the environment. The release of radioactive isotopes, particularly cesium-137 and strontium-90, contaminated soil, vegetation, and water sources. The immediate area around the plant, as well as regions in Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia, were heavily affected. The radioactive materials released into the environment continue to have long-term consequences for wildlife and ecosystems. Certain areas within the exclusion zone have become nuclear wildlife refuges, with populations of plants and animals flourishing in the absence of human activity. However, these animals often show signs of radiation-induced mutations and health issues. Chernobyl's legacy on nuclear energy. The Chernobyl disaster led to significant changes in nuclear energy policy and safety regulations worldwide. Many countries reassessed their nuclear power programs, and there was a renewed focus on safety measures, reactor design improvements, and international cooperation in the nuclear industry. The disaster also accelerated the decline of the Soviet nuclear power program. It led to the premature closure of several RBMK reactors, and construction of others was halted or cancelled. It also had a significant impact on public perception and acceptance of nuclear power in many countries, contributing to a decrease in the construction of new nuclear plants in some regions. The new safe confinement. As mentioned earlier, the original sarcophagus constructed after the disaster was not a permanent solution to contain the radioactive materials. Concerns about its structural integrity prompted the development of a more robust solution known as the New Safe Confinement, NSC. The NSC is an enormous arch-shaped structure designed to cover the damaged reactor and prevent further radiation leaks. It was put into place in 2016 and provides a safer environment for future cleanup efforts. Chernobyl today. The Chernobyl exclusion zone remains restricted to the public due to the ongoing radiation hazard. However, controlled tourism has become more popular in recent years, with guided tours allowing visitors to explore certain areas while adhering to strict safety guidelines. Additionally, efforts are ongoing to manage and contain the radioactive materials, with periodic monitoring and research on the long-term environmental and health impacts. Several scientific studies have been conducted to assess the ongoing radiation effects on the environment and local populations. In conclusion, the Chernobyl disaster had far-reaching consequences that affected countless lives and the global perception of nuclear energy. It remains an enduring reminder of the importance of safety, transparency, and responsible management when dealing with nuclear technology. The legacy of Chernobyl will continue to shape nuclear policies and practices for generations to come. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified of our upcoming videos. Join us next time for more captivating stories from history.